My dearest soul, there is something we need to tell you, something that has been pressing against the veil, between the eternal and the earthly, with such urgency that heaven can no longer contain it. Within the silence of the spiritual realm, we have been watching, as we always watch, as we have always watched, since the very first breath you drew into this body, since the very first moment your spirit settled into the life you are currently living. And what we have seen recently has compelled us to reach through the space between worlds and place these words directly into your hands, directly into your heart, at this precise and critical moment in your journey. Before we tell you everything, we need you to do something. We need you to sit with this for a moment. We need you to feel the weight of what it means that heaven itself is speaking to you right now, that the forces which govern the eternal order of things have decided that you have gone long enough without knowing what we know. There is something happening in your life that you have perhaps sensed, but could not name, something you have felt in the pit of your stomach, in those quiet moments when the world goes still, and your intuition tries to speak louder than your hope. You have been dismissing that feeling. You have been rationalizing it away, burying it beneath the ordinary demands of your days, covering it with the noise of routine and obligation, and the relentless effort of maintaining a love you believe in with every fiber of your being. Do not dismiss what you are about to receive. The universe does not issue warnings carelessly. Heaven does not break its silence without reason. What is being placed before you in this moment is not coincidence. It is not a random string of words that happen to find their way to you on an ordinary day. It is a deliberate intervention, a carefully timed revelation, a message that has been waiting for exactly this moment, when you are finally ready to hear it, when your spirit has been softened enough by the accumulated weight of what you have been sensing to receive the truth without being shattered by it. Something is happening that you cannot see from where you are standing. Something is happening in a space you do not occupy, in a conversation you were never meant to hear, between your soulmate and someone else. And heaven has witnessed it in its entirety, has recorded every word, every expression, every casual cruelty disguised as honest conversation, and has decided that you deserve to know this is not a joke. This is not a test of your faith, or your loyalty, or your willingness to believe. This is the absolute, unvarnished, spiritually certified truth, being delivered to you from the realm where no lies can exist, where every hidden thing is visible, where the words people speak in private rooms carry just as much weight and consequence as the words they speak to your face. What happens in the dark is always known in the light, and what has been happening in the dark, in a space you cannot physically access, in a conversation you were deliberately excluded from, is something that heaven can no longer allow to remain hidden from you. Your soulmate is talking about your face. They are standing in the company of a female friend, casting shadows over the sacred bond you thought was secure, and telling her things about you that no loving partner should ever say to an outsider. They are describing the face that heaven spent incalculable love and intention designing. The face that has greeted this person every morning, the face that has smiled at them, and worried for them, and wept for them, and searched for them across crowded rooms, and they are describing it with the cold, clinical, merciless language of someone who has forgotten that they are talking about a person they claimed to love. My dearest soul, heaven can no longer remain silent as you walk through this earthly wilderness with a blindfold over your eyes. The blindfold was placed there gently, almost lovingly, constructed from your own trust, and your own devotion, and your own deep, unshakable belief in the sanctity of the connection you share with this person. You put it on willingly, because love asked you to, because vulnerability asked you to, because the part of you that believes in soulmates and destiny, and the possibility of being truly, completely known by another human being, asked you to, and heaven does not blame you for wearing it. The willingness to trust so completely is one of the most beautiful things about you. It is one of the things that makes you who you are, one of the qualities that the divine itself recognizes as extraordinary in a world that has largely abandoned the courage of unconditional love. But the blindfold must come off now. Not because trust is wrong, not because love is dangerous, not because you should harden your heart against the possibility of being hurt, but because you deserve to see clearly. You deserve to make decisions about your life, your heart, your energy, and your future from a place of full information, rather than carefully managed ignorance. You deserve to know what is really happening in the spaces you cannot see, so that you can respond with the full power of your own wisdom, rather than continuing to navigate by a map that someone else has deliberately drawn incorrectly. We have watched you from the eternal realms, tracking every heavy breath you take, and every quiet moment you spend, looking into the mirror, wondering where the time went, wondering why the warmth in your home has turned to ice. We have seen you standing in your bathroom in the early morning light, studying your reflection with an expression that breaks our hearts, touching the skin around your eyes, tracing the lines that life has drawn across your face, with a kind of sad uncertainty, as though you are trying to solve a mystery that has been plaguing you. And the mystery, dear soul, the thing you have been trying to figure out without the necessary clues, is why the person who once looked at you, as though you were the answer to every prayer they had ever offered, now, sometimes looks at you, as though you are a disappointment they are learning to accept. You have felt it. You have felt the subtle shift in the quality of their attention, the way their gaze moves over you, without fully landing, the way compliments have become rarer, and silences have become more loaded, the way intimacy has acquired a strange new texture that you cannot quite identify, but that sits uncomfortably in your chest, like a splinter you cannot locate. You have attributed it to stress, to the natural evolution of long-term love, to the ordinary ebbs and flows of any relationship that has moved beyond its honeymoon phase into the deeper, more complicated waters of real partnership. You have been generous with your interpretations, charitable with your assumptions, and relentless in your efforts to be understanding rather than demanding, accommodating rather than confrontational. But the shift you have been feeling is not the natural evolution of love. It is the shadow cast by a specific betrayal, a specific conversation, a specific moment of disloyalty that has been happening outside your awareness, and is now, by the grace and intervention of heaven itself, being brought into the light where it belongs. You have been giving everything you possess to a connection you believed was written in the stars, but heaven has seen enough of the hidden betrayals. Everything, dear soul, everything. Your time, your energy, your attention, your creativity, your emotional labor, your physical presence, your financial resources, your social capital, your personal dreams temporarily set aside in service of shared goals, your health quietly sacrificed on the altar of the relationship's demands. You have been pouring yourself out like water from an infinite pitcher, trusting that the vessel you were filling would honor the gift of your abundance. And all the while, the vessel has been leaking, has been letting the precious liquid of your devotion seep away into spaces where it serves only to fill someone else's need, to feel interesting at your expense. The person you call your soulmate, the one you trusted with your deepest vulnerabilities, the one whose gaze used to make you feel safe enough to exhale, has stepped outside the sanctuary of your love. This stepping outside is not merely physical, though it carries with it all the weight of a physical transgression. It is a stepping outside of the spiritual contract that exists between two people who have chosen each other, who have stood before the universe, in whatever form that standing took, and said, "This person, this one, I choose this one, and I will treat them accordingly. I will guard their heart, I will honor their being, I will speak of them in the world, only in ways that reflect the reverence I carry for them in private." That contract has been broken, not with dramatic ceremony, not with the kind of obvious violation that would be easy to identify and respond to, but with the quiet, insidious, casual cruelty of gossip, dressed up as honest conversation. They are standing in a space you cannot see, speaking to a female friend, sharing the intimate details of your life. This female friend, whoever she is, has been granted access to information that belongs only within the walls of your relationship. Information about how you look, how you have changed, what the years and the struggles and the weight of being alive have written on your face. They are not speaking of you to this friend with the hushed reverence of a partner who is wrestling with complex emotions and seeking outside perspective in order to love you better. They are not saying, "I am worried about her, she seems so tired lately and I want to understand how to help her." They are not saying, "I miss the lightness she used to carry, and I want to find a way to bring it back to her." They are not saying anything that contains within it the architecture of love, the scaffolding of care, the fundamental orientation toward your well-being that should characterize every conversation a true partner has about you in your absence. Instead, they are telling her that your face looks like an aging, tired mess lately. Read those words, dear soul, and feel the full force of their betrayal. Not the aging, which is the natural, inevitable, extraordinarily beautiful process by which every human being is marked by time. Not the tired, which speaks to the exhaustion of a person who has been giving more than they receive, loving harder than they are. Loved, working tirelessly to maintain a relationship that should be a source of restoration rather than depletion. Not even the mess, which is the most reductive and dehumanizing way to describe a face that has loved this person faithfully, that has turned toward them through difficulty and darkness, and kept choosing them, even when choosing them was costly. But the word lately is the part that heaven needs you to sit with, because lately implies comparison. Lately implies that they are measuring the current version of your face against some previous version, holding the you of right now up against the you of before, and finding the difference not poignant, not moving, not a testament to the journey you have shared, but objectionable. They are looking at the evidence of your years together, and treating it as evidence of your failure to maintain some standard they have set in the privacy of their own shallow expectations. They are pointing out the lines of worry on your brow. Those lines are there, at least in part, because you have worried about this person. You have worried about their happiness, their health, their stress levels, their career challenges, their emotional landscape. You have spent countless hours of your mental and emotional energy in service of their well-being, turning their problems over in your mind, with the dedicated concentration of someone who is committed to helping carry a burden they were never asked to carry alone. The lines on your brow are the physical record of your devotion, and they are being presented to an outsider as evidence of your deterioration. They are noting the shadows beneath your eyes. Those shadows are there because you have not been sleeping well, and you have not been sleeping well because something in you knows at a level deeper than conscious thought that something is wrong. The part of you that is spiritually awake, the part that receives information through channels that bypass the rational mind, has been receiving transmissions about this betrayal, and keeping you awake with the weight of what it knows, but cannot yet articulate. Your body has been responding to a threat, your mind has not yet been allowed to name. The shadows beneath your eyes are the visible manifestation of a soul on high alert, and they are being catalogued by the person who should be your greatest protector, and described to a stranger as flaws. They are speaking of the exhaustion etched into your skin with resentment and superficial judgment. Resentment is a particularly devastating word to encounter in this context. Resentment implies that they feel wronged by your exhaustion. It implies that your tiredness is somehow an imposition on them, an inconvenience, a failure to perform adequately in the role they have cast you in. As though your exhaustion is something you chose, as though you woke up one morning and decided to stop radiating the fresh, effortless beauty of someone who is not carrying the weight of an emotionally demanding relationship, and a life full of challenges that you navigate largely alone. As though the toll that genuine love takes on a body is something you should have managed better, hidden more effectively, kept from marking your face, so that their aesthetic experience of you would not be disrupted. They look at the physical toll that life, sacrifice, and the heavy burden of loving them has taken on you, and they use it to paint you as a disaster to someone else. The profound irony of this, the cosmic injustice of it, is that the very toll they are criticizing is a toll that their love has helped to exact. The exhaustion they are mocking is exhaustion they have contributed to. The tiredness written on your face is, in significant part, the tiredness of loving someone who takes more than they give, who drains more than they replenish, who accepts your devotion as their due, without pausing to consider the cost to the one doing the devoting. They are criticizing you for showing the evidence of loving them. They are holding up the mark of their own extraction and presenting it to someone else as your failure. They are telling her that you look like an unrecognizable stranger's face compared to when you first met. This particular cruelty deserves its own examination, because it is multi-layered in its callousness. On the surface, it is a comment about your appearance, a comparison between the version of you that existed at the beginning of the relationship and the version that exists now. But beneath the surface, it is a confession about their understanding of love. Which is to say, it reveals that they do not understand love at all. They understand attraction. They understand the excitement of newness, the intoxication of discovery, the particular electricity of the early days, when everything is still uncertain, and therefore thrilling. But they do not understand love, which is the thing that looks at all the ways a person has changed, and finds them not diminished, but deepened. They are mourning, a shallow illusion of the past, rather than honoring the beautiful, resilient soul standing before them today. The version of you that existed when you first met was not, as they seem to believe, the best version of you. It was simply an earlier version, a less experienced version, a version that had not yet been through everything the two of you have been through together, a version that had not yet grown in all the ways that growth requires, struggle and sacrifice, and the willingness to keep showing up, even when showing up is hard. The face they met at the beginning of this relationship had not yet done the work that your face has done since then. It had not yet loved this person through their difficulties, or carried this relationship through its storms, or stayed open and vulnerable in the face of circumstances that would have justified closing. They speak as if the natural passage of time, and the scars of surviving the world, are crimes you committed against them, turning their back on the deep history you share to bond with an outsider over your perceived flaws. The betrayal embedded in this particular act goes so far beyond the surface level of gossip. It is a betrayal of history. It is a betrayal of everything you have been through together, every hardship you weathered side by side, every moment of grace you shared, every time you showed up for them when you had nothing left to give. They are taking all of that history, all of that shared experience, all of that accumulated intimacy and trust, and setting it aside so they can bond with someone else over the superficial observation that you look different now than you did then, as though the difference between you then and you now is a story of loss rather than a story of extraordinary, ongoing survival. But listen to me, dear soul, and let the voice of heaven anchor you. As this illusion shatters around you, let these words reach into the deepest place in you, the place that exists beneath the hurt and the shock and the grief that is beginning to rise in your chest. As the full weight of this truth settles over you, let them find the part of you that has always known its own worth, even when it was hardest to access, even when the voices around you were loudest, in their opposition to your self-knowledge, and let them water that seed of self-knowledge until it grows strong enough to hold you steady in what is coming. Human eyes are often blind to divine evolution. This is not a platitude being offered to soften a blow that cannot ultimately be softened. It is a cosmological fact, a truth about the fundamental limitations of human perception, that becomes critically important when you are trying to understand why someone you love cannot see what is plainly visible to the eternal realm. The human eye, when it is clouded by vanity and insecurity, and the constant comparison that characterizes a shallow engagement with the world, cannot perceive the kind of beauty that deepens over time. It can only perceive the kind of beauty that fades, because it has calibrated itself to a false standard, a fixed and static idea of what beauty is and how it behaves. And when reality does not conform to that idea, it calls reality the problem. When that person looks at you and sees an aging mess, heaven looks down and sees a tapestry of profound courage. A tapestry, dear soul, is not made quickly. It is not the product of a single afternoon of inspired creativity. It is made over time, thread by thread, with patience and skill, and the willingness to work toward a vision that will only be fully realized at the end of a long process. Each thread in a tapestry is necessary. Each color contributes to the overall design. The dark threads are as essential as the light ones, because without the contrast they provide, the brilliance of the lighter colors cannot be fully appreciated. Your face is a tapestry. Every line, every mark, every shadow, every shift in the texture of your skin is a thread that contributes to the overall design of a life, lived with full commitment, with open-hearted engagement, with the willingness to feel everything, rather than protecting yourself through emotional distance. Every line upon your face is a roadmap of your resilience. When a traveler has made a difficult journey, the map of that journey is not something to be ashamed of. It is something to be honored, something to be studied, something to be recognized as evidence of extraordinary accomplishment. You have made a difficult journey, not just in the obvious dramatic sense, but in the quiet, daily sense that perhaps only heaven fully appreciates, the journey of getting up every morning and choosing love even when love is exhausting, choosing presence, even when presence is painful, choosing hope, even when hope requires a kind of courage that most people will never understand, because they have never loved as completely or as vulnerably as you have. The shadows beneath your eyes are not flaws. Let heaven say that again with the full weight of its authority behind every word. The shadows beneath your eyes are not flaws. They are the badges of a soul that has stayed awake through the darkest nights, fighting battles no one else knows about, keeping your heart soft in a world that is incredibly harsh, and that would have been more than justified in hardening you long ago. Those shadows are the physical record of your vigil, the mark of every night you lay awake, holding the relationship in your heart and mind, turning it over with care, trying to understand it better, trying to love it better, trying to be better within it. They are the evidence of your investment, and your investment, unlike theirs, has been total and unconditional. Your face is the reflection of a spirit that has dared to love deeply, to carry burdens and to survive. Think about what it means to dare to love deeply in a world that constantly communicates that deep love is naive, that vulnerability is weakness, that the smart approach is to always hold something back, always maintain your own fortress, never let anyone in far enough to hurt you. You rejected that approach. You chose the harder, braver, more spiritually advanced path of loving without reservation, of giving without guarantee of return, of opening yourself completely to another person, even knowing that opening yourself completely always carries the risk of being wounded. That choice is not something to be ashamed of, it is something to be celebrated. It is one of the most courageous things a human being can do, and the evidence of it on your face is not damage. It is distinction. It is a face that heaven recognizes instantly, beautiful beyond measure, glowing with a light that no human gossip can ever dim. No matter what is said about you in rooms you cannot enter, no matter what words are used to describe you to people who do not know you, the light that radiates from your face in the sight of the divine cannot be touched by any of it. Gossip does not have the power to alter divine perception. The opinion of a female friend listening to your soul's casual cruelty does not register in the eternal records as meaningful commentary on your worth. Those words exist in the earthly plane, in the thin, shallow layer of human interaction, where appearances are mistaken for reality, and surface is confused with substance. They do not reach us. They cannot reach us, and the divine assessment of your beauty remains unchanged and unchangeable by anything that happens in that shallow layer. The person you call your soulmate is looking at you through a mirror, cracked by their own vanity and internal emptiness. This is the key piece of the puzzle that heaven most urgently needs you to understand, because it is the piece that will determine whether you internalize their words as truth or recognize them for what they are, which is a projection, a displacement, a psychological sleight of hand, by which someone else's self-loathing is transferred onto an innocent party who happens to be close enough to receive it. When someone lacks depth within themselves, they become terrified of depth in another. Your soulmate is not operating from a place of depth, they are operating from a place of surface, of superficiality, of the kind of emotional immaturity that is only ever fully revealed when a relationship moves past the honeymoon phase and into the territory of genuine intimacy, where real selves replace idealized projections and the work of actual love begins. In that territory, shallow people always struggle. They struggle because real love requires them to look at themselves, honestly, to confront their own limitations, to do the inner work that a superficial engagement with life has allowed them to avoid, and instead of doing that work, they deflect, they redirect, they find something external to criticize, so that they do not have to look at what is internal and broken within themselves. They cannot appreciate the beauty of a soul that has grown, aged, and deepened through life's experiences, because they are stuck on the surface, in the shallow end of the pool of human experience, where nothing requires them to dive, where everything stays comfortable and controlled, and safely unconverted from the currency of appearances, into the currency of genuine worth. Your beauty, which is the beauty of someone who has dived deep, and come back up with their eyes, full of what they have seen in the depths, is simply beyond their current capacity to comprehend. It requires a level of spiritual literacy that their choices have not yet equipped them to access. They critique your face to justify their own emotional detachment. This is a critical insight, dear soul. The criticism is not the origin of the problem, it is the symptom. The origin is an emotional detachment that your soulmate has been cultivating, perhaps unconsciously, perhaps as a protective mechanism against the demands of genuine intimacy, perhaps as a preparation for a withdrawal. They have already begun planning. When someone is pulling away from a relationship, they do not always do so honestly and directly. They do not always look at their partner and say, "I am pulling away. Let me be truthful about why." Instead, they build a narrative of justification, a story they tell themselves and others about why their withdrawal is actually reasonable, actually deserved, actually a rational response to the partner's flaws, rather than an expression of their own inadequacy. The criticism of your face is a brick in that narrative. It is a way of saying, to themselves, and to this female friend, that the person they are pulling away from is no longer the person they signed up for, that the contract of attraction, which they have confused for the contract of love, has been altered by time, and therefore they are somehow released from its obligations. It is a way of making you the reason for their own failure to love, of externalizing a deficit that is entirely internal to them. They whisper your flaws to another person, because they lack the courage to look at their own reflection and see the decay of their own integrity. What is decaying in your soulmate is not anything visible to the human eye. It is not written on their face or mapped onto their skin. It is internal and invisible, the decay of honesty, of loyalty, of the basic decency that love requires. They are becoming someone who speaks badly of their partner to outsiders, someone who gossips about the person they share a home and a life with, someone who bonds with others over the diminishment of the one who trusts them most. That is a moral deterioration, and it has nothing whatsoever to do with how you look. Heaven wants you to know this truth today, so you can stop shrinking yourself to fit into their shallow world. The shrinking has been happening gradually, imperceptibly, the way all the most damaging changes happen, so slowly that each individual reduction seems negligible, seems like a minor accommodation, seems like a reasonable adjustment to make for the sake of peace or harmony or love, but accumulated over time, the shrinking has cost you something enormous. It has cost you the fullness of your own presence in your own life. It has cost you the confident, expansive, unapologetically whole version of yourself that existed before their opinions began to shape your self-perception. You have been looking into the mirror through their eyes, and this is perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of the entire situation, because their eyes are not reliable instruments for perceiving your beauty. Their eyes are clouded by their own insecurity, compromised by their own vanity, distorted by the crack in the mirror of their own self-understanding, and yet you have been using those unreliable, compromised, distorted eyes as your primary source of information about how you look, about whether you are beautiful, about whether the face you wear in the world is one that deserves to be seen and celebrated and loved. You have been wondering if you are losing your beauty. Heaven wants to address this directly, clearly, and with absolute authority. You are not losing your beauty. What you are losing is the version of your beauty that was calibrated to someone else's shallow preferences, the version that was performing itself for an audience, that was never truly appreciating the performance. The beauty you are losing is a beauty that was costing you too much, requiring too much maintenance, demanding too much energy, in the service of meeting a standard that kept shifting. And in losing that, you are gaining access to a deeper, truer, more authentic beauty that does not require performance or maintenance, or the constant expenditure of energy in service of another person's approval. You have been trying to fix the tiredness, chasing old versions of yourself, pouring resources into your reflection, in hopes that if you could just recapture something of the way you looked at the beginning, the warmth that has left your home might return, the gaze that used to feel like sanctuary might soften again. But heaven needs you to understand something profound. You cannot love someone into seeing you clearly. You cannot transform yourself into the vision that someone else has constructed in their imagination. You cannot earn through your appearance what should be freely given through love. The version of you that your soulmate fell in love with at the beginning was not more worthy of love than the version of you that exists right now. They were simply at a different stage of their own journey, one in which they had not yet revealed the depths of their own limitations. You cannot find divine validation in a heart that is committed to valuing only the temporary shell. Divine validation, the kind of love and recognition and affirmation that your soul is actually hungry for, the deep, steady, unwavering acknowledgement of your worth, that goes beyond the physical and reaches the eternal, cannot be sourced from someone who is only capable of relating to the surface. It is like trying to draw water from a well that only has a foot of depth. No matter how long you lower the bucket, no matter how expertly you lower it, no matter how faithfully you return to that well every day, you will never draw up the water you need, because it simply does not exist in that location. Look at yourself through the eyes of the angels who guard you. This is an invitation, dear soul, to a radical act of self-perception, to the brave and revolutionary practice of looking at your own face, without the filter of anyone else's opinion, without the distorting lens of their criticism, without the cruel comparison to a former version of yourself that you have been trained to believe was superior. Look at yourself through the eyes of beings who have never judged you, who have only ever known you through the lens of love, who see your face not as a collection of features to be evaluated against some external standard, but as the unique and irreplaceable physiognomy of a soul they have been assigned to protect and cherish. Your face is an exquisite testament to your journey. It belongs to a warrior. Not the cinematic kind, not the kind that stands on a battlefield with a sword gleaming in the light, but the quiet, unglamorous, deeply heroic kind that wakes up every morning in the middle of an ordinary life that has become extraordinary in its difficulty, and keeps going anyway, keeps loving anyway, keeps showing up anyway, keeps reaching for connection and meaning and joy anyway, in spite of everything, in defiance of the circumstances that would justify giving up, in the stubborn, glorious, heaven-separated insistence of a spirit that refuses to be extinguished by the indifference of someone who cannot see its light. Your beauty is not a static picture from the day you met. It is not a photograph taken at a particular moment in time, and then laminated and preserved and held up as the definitive record of what you are. Beauty that is frozen in time is dead beauty, museum beauty, the beauty of something that was once alive but has been preserved precisely because it is no longer living. Your beauty is a living beauty, breathing beauty, beauty that moves and changes and deepens, and reveals new dimensions of itself with every passing season of your life. It is the beauty of something that is still becoming, still unfolding, still revealing itself in the inexhaustible richness of ongoing existence. That kind of beauty deepens with every single year you survive. It does not diminish, it accumulates, it is completely sacred. Your face as it exists right now, at this precise moment in your journey, before you change anything, before you fix anything, before you do anything in response to anyone's criticism or anyone's comparison, is completely and entirely sacred. Not conditionally sacred, not sacred, only if you can manage to look like you did at the beginning, not sacred only if you can disguise the evidence of your exhaustion, or the marks of your years, or the shadows that life has left beneath your eyes. Completely sacred, in its current, honest, unretouched, living reality. Because it is the face of someone heaven loves without condition, and heaven's love does not accommodate conditions. It is time to close the door on the opinions of those who do not deserve a seat in your life. This is not a suggestion. This is not one possible course of action among many reasonable alternatives. This is a directive from the realm that can see the full trajectory of your life, that knows where this road leads, that understands with perfect clarity what the continued consumption of this person's criticism will cost you, if you allow it to continue shaping your self-perception. Close the door. Not with anger, if you can manage it, because anger turned outward tends to burn the person wielding it as much as the person it is aimed at, but with the firm, dignified, self-respecting decision of someone who has received enough information to know that this particular voice does not serve their highest good. You do not belong in a story where your growth is viewed as a disappointment. Read that sentence slowly. Let it move through you at the pace of deep comprehension, rather than the speed of anxious reading. Your growth, everything you have become, through the years of your life, and the years of this relationship, is not a disappointment. It is not a deviation from some plan that was supposed to keep you frozen in the amber of the person you were when you first met. Growth is the point. Growth is the purpose. Growth is what every soul comes to earth to do, and the particular growth you have achieved, through loving this person, through surviving the challenges of this relationship, through staying open when closing would have been easier, through continuing to love. when love was not being returned in equal measure, is precisely the kind of growth that heaven marks down in the eternal records as extraordinary. If they can sit with an outsider and reduce your entire existence, your sacrifices, and your beauty to a superficial critique, they have already disqualified themselves from being your true counterpart. A soulmate, in the truest spiritual sense, is not simply someone who makes your heart race, or who fits into the life you have built. A soulmate is someone who sees your soul, someone who can look at you in your most tired, most worn, most ordinary, most imperfect state, and still perceive the divine in you. Someone who speaks about you in your absence, with the same reverence they bring to your presence, who guards your reputation as carefully as they guard their own, who treats the information you have trusted them with as sacred rather than as material for entertainment. By that definition, the person currently standing with a female friend and describing your face as an aging tired mess has disqualified themselves. Not permanently perhaps, because people are capable of growth and healing, and the development of greater spiritual maturity. But in this moment, in this season of their evolution, they are not operating at the level that your soul requires in a partner. Let their words fall away into the dust. Let every cruel syllable, every dismissive comparison, every casual cruelty dressed as honest observation dissolve into the nothing from which it came. Words spoken from a place of shallowness do not carry eternal weight. They are temporary, earthly, bound to the limitations of the consciousness that produced them. They will not exist in 100 years. They will not be recorded in any eternal archive. They are dust, and dust returns to dust, and the truth of your beauty will outlast every word ever spoken against it by someone who could not see clearly. They carry no authority over your destiny, unless you choose to believe them. This is the place where your power lives. Not in their behavior, not in their growth or lack thereof, not in whether they eventually come to recognize what they have in you, and treat it accordingly. Your power lives in your choice about what to believe. Every time you accept their assessment of your face as accurate, you hand them a piece of your power. Every time you reject it, every time you look into the mirror and choose to see what heaven sees, rather than what they described to their friend, you take that piece back. The accumulation of those choices, day by day, moment by moment, reflection by reflection, is how you reclaim the fullness of who you are. Heaven is calling you to lift your head. Not metaphorically, though that too, but literally, physically, lift your head. The posture of someone who has been absorbing criticism and shrinking under the weight of another person's opinion is a downward posture, a caving-in posture, a posture that communicates to both the self and the world, a diminishment that heaven refuses to accept as your permanent condition. Lift your head and let the light of the divine fall fully on your face. Let it illuminate every line, every shadow, every mark that life has made on you. Let it reveal the beauty that exists there, not in spite of those marks but because of them, because of what they represent, because of the story they tell about a soul that has loved bravely and survived magnificently, and kept its heart open in the face of everything that argued for closing it. Look past the broken mirrors of this world. There are so many broken mirrors, so many distorting surfaces, that will show you a version of yourself that does not correspond to the truth of your divine creation. The broken mirror of someone else's insecurity, the broken mirror of cultural standards of beauty that are constructed to make you feel inadequate, so that you will spend your resources trying to achieve them. The broken mirror of comparison, which always produces a distorted image, because it holds you up against someone who is not you, and measures the distance between you and them as a deficit, rather than recognizing it as simply the natural difference between two unique souls. All of these mirrors are broken, and you have been cutting yourself on their broken edges for too long. Step into the fullness of your royal worth. Your worth is not something you earn, it is not something you perform, it is not something you achieve through the right combination of appearance and behavior, and the successful management of another person's expectations. It is inherent, it is original, it was established at the moment of your creation, and has been unchanged and unchangeable since that moment, regardless of anything that has happened to you, or through you or around you in the years since. You are of royal worth, because you were created by the divine, and everything the divine creates carries within it the indestructible stamp of its maker's excellence. You are not a stranger. When your soulmate said, "Your face looks like a stranger's face," compared to when they met you, they revealed their own estrangement from you, their own distance from the intimacy that would allow them to see you clearly. You are not a stranger. You are the most intimately known version of yourself that has ever existed. You know things about yourself, now that you could not have known at the beginning, depths of your own capacity for love and endurance and grace that only the years and the challenges have revealed. You are more fully yourself now than you have ever been, and the face that reflects that fuller self is not the face of a stranger. It is the face of someone who has finally, through difficulty and growth, and the patient unfolding of time, arrived at something closer to their true form. You are not a mess. You are a soul gracefully weathering the storms of life. Grace does not always look graceful from the outside. Sometimes it looks like exhaustion, sometimes it looks like worn edges and tired eyes, and a face that carries the evidence of battles fought in private. But the grace is in the continuing, in the showing up, in the refusal to be destroyed by what was designed to destroy you. The grace is in the love you are still capable of feeling. Even now as you receive this truth, even as the betrayal of it settles into you. The fact that what you feel is grief, rather than contempt, tells you everything you need to know about who you are, compared to who they are in this moment. Reclaim your spirit. It has been on loan to someone who has not been taking care of it, someone who has been using the energy of your spirit to fuel conversations that diminish, rather than celebrate you, someone who has been consuming the light of your presence, without honoring its source. Reclaim it. Call it back from every room where it has been sent to perform love in hopes of receiving love in return. Call it back from every moment of anxiety about your appearance, every morning spent scrutinizing your reflection through someone else's critical eyes, every night spent lying awake, wondering what you need to change, to make them see you the way they used to. Call your spirit back to yourself, where it belongs, where it will be honored and cherished, and allowed to simply be, without performance, without apology, without the constant expenditure of energy in service of someone else's comfort with your existence. Turn away from the shadows of their betrayal. You will feel the pull of those shadows for a while. The pull of wanting to understand, wanting to know why, wanting to find the explanation that makes it make sense, wanting to believe that if you could just find the right words, or make the right changes, everything would shift back to what it was. Feel that pull, without following it. Acknowledge it as the natural response of a heart that loves, and therefore wants to save what it loves. And then, with the gentleness and firmness of someone who is finally choosing themselves, turn away. Not in bitterness, which would keep you tethered to them through the chain of negative emotion, but in the clean, clear-eyed movement of someone who has received enough information to make a new choice about where to invest their most precious resource, which is the extraordinary, irreplaceable, divinely originated gift of their own love. Walk into the divine light where you are eternally loved, cherished and seen. This light is not somewhere else. It is not in a distant spiritual dimension that requires years of practice to access. It is right here, right now, available in this very breath, in this very moment of your reading these words and feeling them land in the true center of your being. It is the light that was there before you were born, and will be there after everything else has fallen away. It is the light that has never wavered, never withdrawn, never made its continued shining contingent upon your performance, or your appearance, or your ability to meet some standard set by someone who does not love you well. In that light, you are eternally loved. Not loved the way your soulmate is currently loving you, conditionally and superficially, and in ways that express themselves in private criticism to an outsider, but loved with the totality and permanence of the divine, with a love that sees every layer of you, and chooses all of them, that knows every version of you and treasures all of them, that has witnessed every moment of your life, including the ones that are too painful to revisit, and is not diminished in its love by any of it. Loved as though your existence itself is the gift, as though the simple fact that you are here, that you are breathing, that you are moving through the world with your beautiful, tired, extraordinary, sacred face, is reason enough for infinite gratitude. Cherished, dear soul, not tolerated, not assessed, not compared to a previous version, and found wanting. Cherished completely, as you are, right now, in this moment, exactly as you look today, and seen, fully seen in all your complexity and depth and contradiction and beauty, seen by eyes that are not clouded by vanity, or limited by the poverty of a shallow heart, seen by the eternal gaze that has been fixed on you, since before you can remember, and will remain fixed on you. Long after this chapter of your story has been completed, and left behind in the extraordinary, ongoing magnificent narrative of who you truly are.